one, just anybody, hand up, yes, sir.
Paintbrush.
Paint, okay, painters, right? Yes.
Picture frames or frames.
Picture frame, right, okay, yep.
Just like drawings and scribbles from my childhood.
Drawings, yeah, most art starts with drawing, that's a good one, yeah.
Sketches.
Sketches, a form of quick drawing, yeah, yeah.
Canvas.
Canvas, which often is painted on, sometimes wood is painted on, wood panels. Good, what else? Yeah.
Color palette.
Color palette, yeah, they've been learning some art, I can tell. Does anyone, when you think of art, does anyone think of architecture, for example? That's buildings, right? The design of buildings, which is, if it's good, it's done by artists. Okay, so I just wanted to see where you were on this, the whole question of art. We could spend a day on that easily. I'm gonna be going at a really fast clip, okay? Because I got a lot of stuff to cover, not much time, but if you don't understand something, or you wanna ask something, or you wanna comment, please put up your hand for two reasons. One is, it often leads to a very important, bigger question. And then the other thing is, there might be another student that's afraid to put their hand up and they might be wondering the same thing. So you're helping them if you're brave enough to put your hand up. And believe me, I never put any students down, ever, okay? So, art of Spain and Mexico, let's get going on this. This area of this is obviously a map of Spain. This is the capital, Madrid. You probably know that already. That's where the king of Spain was. This is the headquarters for the government. Up at the top, the reason that's circled is this area right in here is where the oldest art ever made by humans on this planet has been found. The oldest art. And we're talking 40,000 years old. 40,000, which is, like 30-something thousand years before language, before they had written language. So what you're going to be looking at, and by the way, 40,000 years ago there was no Spain, there was no France, it was just an area on the globe, that's all it was. But this is where humans first started to do art that we know of 40,000 years ago, and it was done in caves. Okay, so let's look at that. This is, now the story goes like this. Many years ago, there were some kids, they were playing with a soccer ball, kicking it around, and they whacked it, and it went down a hole. And one of the dogs that was there with them went down the hole to get the ball and didn't come back out for a long, long time. So these kids, they crawled into the hole and they went down and they found these incredible caves. They kept going back to them, bringing lights with them, and they kept going deeper and deeper into it. And this is the front of the cave in Altamira, where you saw circled on the map in the northern part of Spain. Now, as we move on to the interior Galleria, Altamira is the name of the caves. Right across the way, the border into France, there's a bunch more, and they're all kind of connected. Now, there we go. This is one of the great examples of the earliest art of humans. And in this particular cave, they were painting on these walls for about 15,000 years. And sometimes you can see where they paint right over something else, okay? Now, one of the interesting things about these fantastic figures, and you can see that they're way up on the walls. One of the interesting things about it is they're always at the back of the caves, where you have to often crawl on your belly and stuff to get back into the rooms where these are. 40,000 years ago, light was torches, right? You light a torch, you crawl around back of it. And so the question is, why were these done? We really don't know, because there was no written thing to go with them, right? That didn't come till another 15,000 years. So why? And scientists, archaeologists, art historians work on this, and it's all guesswork. They call it conjecture, which is a fancy word for guessing. But it's educated guessing. They study it their whole lives. If you wanted to go see these, by the way, you couldn't, because, well, it would be super hard to do it, because when humans come in there and they start looking at these things, the breathing, the moisture from your breath and the carbon dioxide starts to affect the paint, and it hurts it. So they only allow a few people per year, and then they have a lottery for non-scientists to come in where you could look at it once in a while, but it's hard to get, real hard. Okay, so you notice these animals, right? Almost zero pictures of humans. Almost everything is related to animals. These people at this time were hunter-gatherers. Who knows what that means? What's a hunter-gatherer? You were first, yes.
Like they go around like hunting food and gathering stuff for their food, and then they really settle in one spot.
Yeah, great. That last part was important. She said they rarely settle in one spot because they're moving from place to place, hunting and collecting wild food like berries and roots and things like that. They didn't know how to plant seeds. They didn't raise animals like cows, chickens, pigs, and stuff like that. None of that. It was all hunting and gathering, okay? So, this is a close-up of a dying animal, they call it. And it's kind of hard to see at first, but it's an animal like a bull. And if you look, this is its back hindquarters here. This big hump is where its neck is, and then its head is curled up in that fetal position, and it's dying. And you can see the horns sticking out down here. Can you all see that now, I hope? Okay, great. Now, what I want you to notice is this. It's outlined in black. Almost all of these are done this way. So what would they do? They didn't have paints, obviously. They didn't have paint brushes. Yeah, charcoal? Charcoal, exactly. Good, charcoal. Which is all you do is you burn some wood, you get a stick, and you can draw with it. People still do that all the time, a charcoal drawing. If you take a drawing class in college and stuff, they have you drawing with charcoal. So, and then to get the colors, these soft reds and stuff, berries, excellent berries. Sometimes they would chew up iron-rich dirt even in their mouth. And here's the weird thing, one of the weird things. After they got done with the outlining, what they would do is, and this was discovered recently, what they would then do is they would take the colors. Well, let's say they're using berries, because berries stain. If you ever get it on your clothes, you'll know. So they would chew up some berries, chew up a little bit of animal fat with it to give it the right texture, then a little bit of water, and then chew it up in their mouth, and then go up and use their mouth like a spray gun and go like that all over the surface of the painting. Sometimes they would take a little animal bone, like a chicken bone, and hollow it out, dip it down in this stuff, and go like that onto the wall too. So that's how they get those soft colors, because it almost looks like an air gun painting, an airbrush. So the question is, why were they doing these things? We don't know exactly. We were thinking, one of the guesses is that it was done for the hunt. The idea being that if you can capture the spirit of the animal, that you can have a successful hunt. And the hunt, of course, means you stay alive. So it wasn't done just for decoration. Because think about it. I mean, if it's in the back of the cave, why have it back there if you're doing it for decoration where it's hard to see? They used to think, of course, that it was a hunting thing with the young men when they go from boyhood to manhood. They were dragged back there and shown these things in the torchlight. They would say, okay, this is now you're going to be one of us. You're going to be going after these animals. You better be good or we die. But what we discovered recently is that the handprints that go along with these, you see these handprints on the walls? Now keep in mind, this is guesswork again, conjecture. But what they think is that these are a form of signature. Because often when an artist finishes a painting or something, what do they want to do? They want to say, I did it, they sign it, right? And so if they couldn't write their name, because there was no writing, put your hand up on the wall, blow around it, and it's your signature, basically. And again, almost never is a human shown in the drawings and stuff. Recently it was discovered that these handprints are those of females. They're women's handprints, which now they're thinking, okay, maybe the artists were actually women instead of men. It was always assumed, men did this for the hunt and blah, blah, blah. But now they've changed their mind on that one. And it's quite possible, even probable, that it was women that were doing it. There's another example right there. You see where they blew the reddish color around their own hand. Any questions, comments so far? Anybody? Okay, great. There's a picture, a drawing of what they think. They would break the bone off and then dip it down, blow it in, use it like a little like a straw. Now, we're moving way up in time. We're going from 40,000 years ago to the year 1541 to 1614. This famous Spanish painter, El Greco. Does anyone know what El Greco means? El Greco means the Greek. So he wasn't actually born in Spain. He went there because that's where the money was. You know, artists, they're like any other job. You have to stay alive. You get a patron that's rich, and if he buys your paintings or she buys your paintings, then you stay alive. And if you can't, then you're a flop. So anyone want to guess, if you were an artist at this time of El Greco, and here's a picture of him, and you wanted to get a rich person to buy your paintings, who do you think you'd go to if you're in Spain? Just guess. Oh,
Prince of King.
good. Yeah, exactly. You go to the King of Spain. He's one of the best patrons to buy your thing you could possibly have. Why? Because he's powerful, he has lots and lots of money, and you can get famous if you can get him as your patron, the person who buys your stuff. By the way, patron, I think in Spanish is often boss, right? But in the art world, it means the person that buys your stuff. And if you can get a rich one, you're hooked in. Okay. All right, good. So here he is, El Greco. His real name was Theotokopoulos, but they called him the Greek. And kind of unusual looking guy. Now he's wearing a couple things that are really interesting. One is he's got a big fur collar on. This is his self-portrait, his own picture of himself. And he's also got a strange, almost clown-looking collar on. Those two things were symbols of richness, of wealth. That's how the upper class dressed. There were actually laws about this. You were forced to dress a certain way. For example, button laws and stuff like that. You could have a certain amount of buttons if you had a certain amount of money. It was pretty weird. So this collar is showing you that he's like upper class. It means he doesn't have to move his head around very much because he has servants doing stuff for him. It got pretty weird at times. So there he is. Self-portrait, they call it. A picture of himself. See, the camera wasn't around until like about 1850s in that time. And so this is hundreds of years before cameras. So let me ask you this. If you wanted a picture of somebody and you don't have a camera because it hasn't been invented, who would you go to? Yes.
Painter.
A painter, exactly. And they made a lot of money by painting pictures for weddings, for special occasions of the king, the queen, all of those kind of things. Anybody with money wanted a picture of themselves painted. And the better artist, the more money. Okay, so he tried to get the king to be his patron. It didn't work. So he mostly did work for churches, the Catholic Church in Spain. Good, there he is. Thought to be self-portrait, 1595, 16. So it shows it was in a 5-year period that he worked on this thing. Oh, one quick thing. Let's say that you're doing a picture of yourself, a self-portrait, right? What would you need? Paint, of course.
A mirror.
A mirror, exactly, a mirror. You look at yourself, I've had to do this in art classes. You look at yourself, you draw. Look at yourself, draw. You just keep going back and forth, and then you come in later and you put the colors in and all of that. In the case, if you had someone that you're painting, like the king, he's not going to want to sit there for hour after hour after hour, and they wouldn't do that. So what the artist would do, he would go in, do a bunch of drawings as fast as he could, go back to a studio, work on the painting, and then maybe the next few days have the king come in for a couple of minutes, kind of take some more fast notes with his drawings, and then work on it in a studio, okay? Now, this is one of his really famous paintings. It's called The Burial of Count Urgell, and it's gigantic. It's about twice the height of this room. Huge painting. And it's showing the burial of this really rich Spanish guy down here, and these two saints have come down to personally bury him. The reason that this is well known and famous is a couple things. One is, all of these pictures of these people here are all rich Spanish people. And so they wanted their picture in this thing. It's going to be in a church and it's going to stay there for a long time. So they thought it would be, you want your picture in there, a whole bunch of different portraits of different people, of Spanish people. This right here is the artist's son. This is Jorge, his boy. So artists often, if they're working on something like this, they want to get themselves in on it too. They want a picture of either their son, or their wife, or their girlfriend, or their, something like that. They want to, something like themselves. Very often you'll see an artist over here looking at you from the side. Okay, the burial of Count Ordaz, again, 2-year period working on it. Now this one, I'm going to go really quickly on this. This is obviously crucifixion of Jesus, right? And I'm sure you all know about that. One of the things that's interesting about this is El Greco was using a shape that was really popular. It was, how many of you have heard of Leonardo da Vinci? Great, okay, great. Probably the most famous artist who's ever lived, arguably Italian Renaissance. And he used a triangle shape, and other artists picked up on it. And you can see, can you all see where this triangle would be? It would start here, go up to his face, and come down there. You can kind of see a triangle shape. He didn't want to make it really obvious. But the reason he does that is, the human mind likes strength, and it likes that shape, the pyramids, for example. And what he's doing is he's playing with your eye, and he knows that you're going to bounce around, but you're going to keep going up to there, because that's where the top of the triangle is. Okay? So let's move on. Crucifixion. Now this one, this is, I would have to say, probably his most famous painting, and it's in San Francisco, at a place called the Legion of Honor, and it's their jewel of their collection. It's like they're so, this thing, if you were to buy it today, you're probably talking somewhere in the area of 30 million, somewhere in there. So here he is, and the painting's about, from the floor, it's about this high. Anyway, now there's a lot of symbolism in here. Anyone know what that means? Symbolism? What it means is this. Yes.
Like a picture or like an idea to represent words.
Exactly. Very good. There's things that it's almost like a secret code symbolism. It's all of these things in here have meaning more than they. And back then, everyone knew what the meaning was. If they showed Jesus with a little bird in his hand, that meant he was going to be killed. It's crucifixion. And they had tons of these things, hundreds of different symbols. This one, you'll notice a lot of black, right? And then you've got the faces that pop out, the hands, the faces, because they're very light in color. Spanish artists are very different. They like to use a lot of black. Most other, the Italians didn't, the French didn't, but the Spanish did. Can anyone see where there's a cross hidden in this? A cross. Yes, your face. Huh?
Oh, it's behind Jesus.
Behind, oh, okay. Well, this is actually St. Francis.
No, I know, but there's a picture of Jesus on the cross.
Yeah, okay, there's this cross. Very good. Yeah, excellent. But there's more of a hidden one.
It's
Yeah.
kind of like on his jacket or on his
On the
collar.
sleeve here? Yeah, excellent. Can you see this? That's not an accident. That's the seams in his garment, but what they want to symbolize there is this guy's a lot like Jesus. And he was, by the way. He came from a rich family, St. Francis. He gave up everything he had and lived a very poor life, giving everything to poor people. And he wanted to be like Jesus, okay? His skull represents what?
Death.
Good, death. You all got that. Skull represents death. Why do you suppose he has Jesus next to the skull? Because obviously he doesn't want to say Jesus is death. Yeah. Of course, Jesus did die on that cross. We all know that. But yeah,
Maybe he's mourning.
mourning is death. That's part of it. But there's one other thing. If you're a Christian, you believe that Jesus came back from the dead, that he beat death, right? He goes up into heaven and he sits at the right hand of God, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, if you're a Christian, that is your belief. So what he's doing is he's showing death and a way to beat it. If you follow the church and the teachings of Jesus, he's saying basically you're gonna survive death. Okay? And there's tons of this ivy up here means they thought that plant never died, like Jesus. Down here, this piece of paper on the bottom, that's his signature down there. Sometimes they sign their things, sometimes not. Yes.
In the book of the Bible.
Yes, Thank you. The book is the Bible. Yeah, very good. We could go on forever on this painting, but my daughter wrote a paper on it. It was about 10 pages. So this guy, I'm going to start really going fast now. Diego Velázquez. Now, just his name. I don't know if this is still the case in Spain today, but you can use your mother's last name. Is it right? So his name actually was Diego Silva Velázquez. Silva, his dad's last name. Velázquez, his mother's last name. So there was this tradition where you go your first name and then your father's name and then your mother's name last. Okay. And there's a self-portrait that he did of himself right there, Diego Velázquez. Now, people that study painting, if you ask them, who do you think the greatest painter who ever lived was? It wouldn't be weird if they said Velázquez. He's not as well known as a lot of people, but he is considered to be one of the greatest ever. And notice too, he's got the high collar. That means he's important because the bigger, the higher the collar, that was part of your dress code, okay? And his mustache, there he is. Self-portrait. 1640, now we're gonna move on. This he did when he was really young. He must have about what, 12, 13, something like that. He did this when just around the time he turned 20. So you have to figure if he was that good at the age of 20, he must have been already studying painting probably by the age of 10, somewhere in there. And I don't have time to go into it, but basically you study with a master and then you learn. That's all you do. You just paint. And so here he is. He's showing what he can do. He's sort of showing off. This is called the water cellar. And can you see the pyramid again?
Yeah.
Oh, good, yeah. And it takes your eye up to the old man's face. He's selling water. Spain, hot country, they sell water. Now, look at this close-up, everybody. This is really amazing. Here you have this young painter. Look how he does the hand holding this glass of water and the way this jug is done and stuff. One of the hardest things for an artist to do are hands and face. Those are the two hard things. So what he's doing is, especially doing a hand holding, or a hand going like this. Imagine you had to paint a hand going like that. Can you see how hard that would be? So what he's doing is he's showing off his ability with his hands. Did you comment?
No.
Okay. So there you go, the water cellar of Seville, city in Spain. And this is, now Velázquez was the painter for the king. And this is him. This is Philip IV of Spain. Now, real quickly, imagine if you're an artist and you're making a lot of money because you're working for the king. Are you going to want to paint the king as he looks, or are you going to want to make him look even better, or are you going to make him look worse? What do you think? What are you going to do? Yes. Better, yeah. Everyone likes good pictures of themselves. And so if you're painting a portrait of the king, you better make it look good. And so it shows him real tall. He's wearing clothing that is extremely expensive. And one of the cool things about this is, it looks like he's wearing all this lace and silk and everything. But if you go up to this painting, it's in Madrid, in the Prado. If you go up to this painting very closely, like say you're 3 feet away, it looks sloppy. All of this stuff is just really random looking brush strokes. It looks, and you think, God, this looks lousy, until you step back. And then it all comes, that's the genius of a great artist. He knows how to do that. And he's holding a letter in his hand. That letter has the painter's name on it, Velázquez. Can anyone guess, in a time, okay, when this was painted, a lot of people could not read or write. So if you were rich and you had a good education, you could read and write, and that gave you more power. So in a lot of these pictures, you'll see them with their hand on a book, holding a letter, stuff like that. What they're saying there is what? They're saying, I can read and write, and that you can. Okay, so there he is. Strange jaw. Okay, he had a jaw deformity. His jaw wouldn't close right. And it was because, don't have a lot of time to get into it, but the more families, if you marry cousins and things like that, you begin to have birth problems, birth defects. And there was a bad one in the Spanish royal family of the jaw not shutting right. Okay, so there he is, Philip IV in brown and silver. Now, this is my favorite Velázquez painting right here. This is in New York City at a place called the Metropolitan. And when he painted this, when Velázquez painted this, what he had done is he had gone to Italy because the richest person in the world lived in Italy. The leader of the Catholic Church, known as the Pope. Good, the Pope. If you could get a connection with the Pope, you were, man, that was as solid as you could get. The only problem was you had to be really good. And if the Pope didn't want to pay you, Michelangelo found out, he wouldn't pay. But he wanted to do the portrait of the Pope. The Pope said, "What can you do? You're from Spain. Show me." And so he quickly did this painting of his assistant, Juan Perea. And now this man had been a slave, and Velázquez bought his freedom for him. And you see the dignity of the painting. You can tell that he had a lot of respect for this guy, the way he paints him. He paints him looking intelligent and proud. So he showed this to the Pope, and he got the job of painting the Pope. And there's the Pope. His name was Innocent X. That's what he called himself. And innocent, yeah, he doesn't look innocent, does he? But if you look at this guy's face, Velázquez is trying to tell you something. Velázquez doesn't want to get in trouble. He doesn't want to push it too hard because this guy's really rich and powerful. But he wants you to know something about this guy's personality. And so as you look at this, and you look at that guy's face, what would you say, something about him? Yeah.
He's tough and
Tough, good, tough, yeah.
Very stern.
Stern, serious. Yeah, this isn't the kind of guy where you want to go up and start joking with him. Yeah.
Greedy?
Greedy? Yeah, a little bit. Well, yeah, but, I mean, look at the rich stuff all around him. You could just, yeah, he's got money beyond all belief. Okay, good. Now, when the Pope saw this, he said, it's a good painting, but it's too real. And what he meant, I think he meant was, you're telling people too much about me. I don't want them to know that this is the way I am. And this is the way he was, by the way, a dangerous guy. And you see he's holding a letter telling you again, I'm educated. All right. Pope Innocent X. Now, this is another famous Velázquez painting, and it's called The Handmaidens. And when you look at it, your first thought is, okay, this is the main picture, subject, right? Right here, this girl, this princess. She's the princess of the king, right? She's going to be queen someday. And but the more you look at it, the more you realize there's a lot going on. These people here were court dwarfs, these little people that would go around as entertainers. And Velázquez sometimes painted them too, just portraits of them where he made them very proud and he respected them. But here's Velázquez. He's painting. You see this right here? That's the edge of the painting that he's working on. So he's doing a huge painting. He's holding his palette right there with the colors on it. He's got the brush in his other hand. And he's looking at you, right? He's not, he's painting her, but he's actually looking at you, the viewer. And it gets even stranger when you realize that there's a mirror back here on the wall, and there's two people in the mirror. So where would they be standing? They'd be standing with you, right? Because think about it, you're standing here, the mirror's picking up their image. So you're standing next to the king and queen of Spain, who are in that picture right there. So you've got a lot of strange stuff going on at the same time. Now this little cross was painted on 3 years later when he was given a knighthood by the king. He always wanted to be up in society. He was born into a middle-class family. He wanted to be rich, and so he wanted everyone to know, okay, now I've been made official. Okay, I'm now a knight. Any comments, questions on? And again, this is a huge painting, huge. Okay, good. We'll move on then. Maids of honor. There they are. I wish we had time to go into their dress customs back then. The women, if you were a rich woman, you didn't dress yourself. Okay, you got up in the morning, you had a bunch of servants, they would bathe you, put on your makeup, do your hair for you, put this thing around your waist and pull it in real tight so your waist was as tiny as possible. And that's why they fainted all the time. Pablo Picasso. Now this guy is how many of you have heard the name? Pablo, okay, good. Super famous artist. When you talk about modern art, he is the utmost figure in modern art, Pablo Picasso. Now, his name, actually, I wrote this down, but I didn't want to memorize it because it's just too much. But his full name is this. That's, we call him Picasso by his last name. His actual full birth name was Pablo Diego Jose Francisco de Paula Juan Nepomuceno Maria de los Remedios Cipriano de la Sistemisa Trinidad Ruiz y Picasso. That's his full name. Good question. Some of those names were family names, and some were the names of saints that were, hoping that they would protect him in his life. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So let's see. Let's move on here. There he is as an old guy right there. You can see him right there. There he is in his studio working on a picture. You can see this huge sculpture in the back, like a statue. He did it all. He did painting, drawing, prints. He even did cups and plates, and God, he did everything. Amazing guy. This is a picture he did of himself when he was, in his late teens. Now, here's the weird thing. You look at this painting and you think, okay, what's he trying to do? This is called cubism. What he does is he takes the human face. If he wanted to paint like a photograph, he could have done that. They said that, he started serious artwork when he was 9 years old. By the time he was like your age, he could copy master painters. But he didn't want to do that. And the idea was this, why copy something to make it look like a photograph if you can just take a photograph? Why not just take a photograph? So then he said, okay, I'm going to start playing with the human face. I'm going to take it apart, put it back together any way I feel like it, because I'm the artist. And then, and so this is an example of what's called cubism. There a self-portrait. Now this is one of his early famous paintings. Yes? Oh, there it is. One of the same series. Slightly different, but same subject, different angle. This was what's known as his blue period. Blue. Okay, he used almost all blue paints. People argue about why. Some people said, well, that's all he cared about. Other people said, no, he was super poor at the time, and someone gave him a whole bunch of free blue paint, and he wanted to use it all. This is called, let's move it up. Bill Guitarist, 1903. He was in France at the time. He's a Spanish artist who goes to Paris, France, because that's where the art scene was, right? That's the art scene there. So if you want to be successful and a big name, you go to where the money and the action is, and at this time it's in Paris. But he is a Spanish guy. So when you look at this painting, let's look at another one. This one too. This is called The Tragedy. This family is done, first of all, the color blue brings what? Is it, would you call it a warm color or a cold? Yes, it's a cold color. Is this, when you look at this, do you get happiness? I hope not, because then you're really weird. Do you get, how many of you get sadness out of this? Okay, good. You don't? Okay, good. How about loneliness? Is that another one you get out of that? Okay, loneliness. Notice a couple things here that Picasso does. He's using cold colors. They're standing on a beach barefooted. They look poor, they're thin. Their heads are down. When a person's, depressed, very often they walk around with their head down, right? So their heads are down. Do you see any of them hugging each other? No. So they're lonely, they're isolated, they're separated. That's what he's trying to show here. That's what this painting's about, okay? Now, this, can anyone guess what this is?
A mask?
Yes.
Those are the African masks.
Excellent, yeah, great. African mask from West Africa, where they took the slaves. This is a group of people called the Fang, F-A-N-G, the Fang, and they're known for their masks. These masks were being brought up to France at this time. And if you were an arty person living in Paris at the time and you wanted to be cool, you know, a lot of them started collecting these masks. And Picasso saw them and he liked them, and he started collecting them. And they start to show up in his painting. I'll show you what I mean, African Fang mask, there you go. Now this is a human face. Well, when you look at it, you don't go, oh yeah, that looks like a photograph. No, of course not. The artist he stretched it. It's called abstracting. What you do is you change the shapes, okay? Now look at this face right there, in this, look at these faces. Now go back a second, look at the mask, look at the faces. Can you see where he's getting some ideas? This is young ladies of Avignon. We could go spend a lot of time on this. Some of it wouldn't be appropriate though, so I'll move on. Then we go to, this is called the Great Musicians. This is in New York City, by the way. Now this one, what he was doing at this time is, again, he's breaking up these shapes and putting them back together again. And what he would do is he would take a paper, paint it a certain color, cut it out, and glue it down. Okay, that's what he's doing. 3 musicians. Okay, then we go, now we move to this is called the bullfight. Let's go back. Death of the Toreador. Picasso, when he was a child, went to bullfights in Spain. They don't do them in France, they do them in Spain, they still do it. So the bullfights, he was like me, he liked animals, so he liked it when the bull won, which was very rare. Usually the bull gets killed at the end. That's what they do. It's a horrible sport. I don't even think they should call it a sport, but the bull gets killed at the end. First they stab it a bunch of times to weaken it, and then they blind it, and they do some other, and then the guy comes out and does his fancy stuff and stabs it and kills it, right? Well, once in a while, the fighting bull gets lucky, and very often he would split the horse open and maybe get the matador, the guy with the cane, and that's when Picasso enjoyed it. And so Picasso identified with bulls. He thought of himself as being like a bull of a guy, and so this is one of his paintings of it. Okay? And the horse is dying. You can see this is its intestines are falling out.
Oh, perfect.
It got ripped open by the bull's horns, right?
Yum.
Yeah. Okay, here's another. This is a super famous painting called Guernica. Now, Guernica it's huge, and it's what it's showing you. Can you see the horror in here, the fear, right? You see the fear in this thing? What he's showing you is the death of 2,000 people in one afternoon in the little city of Guernica in Spain. They were having a civil war in Spain. And the leader of Spain was a guy named General Franco. And General Franco, there was a city in his own country that was giving him problems. So Franco went to Hitler, I'm sure you've all heard of Hitler, and the German leader at the time, and said, you know, you want to test your warplanes out? I've got just the place. So he gave Hitler permission to bomb a Spanish city of Guernica. And so they did. They dived over it, blew it all to pieces, and of course Picasso was outraged, because even though he had moved away, he was still at heart a Spanish person. And so he wanted people to see this in his art. And so you've got the dying people, you've got the suffering, all over the bull representing Picasso himself. You've got, you can see it's all about fear. It's all pushed together in a tight space. Very famous painting. Guernica. Again, that's just the name of the little Spanish town that got destroyed by the Nazi Air Force. Comments, questions on that? Anybody? Okay, good, we're making good time. Now, he did hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of paintings and drawings of bulls. He was obsessed. This is a series he did where he was after, what he wanted to do was take the bull and break it down into its simplest shapes. So here he is. This is the first one. Then you go to this one. Then you go to this one. And he's still not satisfied though. He says, no, this is not what I'm after. He starts to simplify it, break it into lines. Now he's starting to like it a little bit more. It looks a bit like an African mask right there. See that? Then he continues on. See, he's playing with it. He's playing with the shapes. He's breaking it down. He's changing it. And he keeps doing it more.
What?
And you see, he's breaking it down. And then he continues. He's still not totally satisfied though. He just goes on and on and on until he just keeps breaking it again. Finally, this is his favorite. This one, this is the one he calls, the other ones he called bull. This one he calls the bull. This is it. This is the bull. And I enjoy this one because it makes it look kind of stupid. I mean, look, if you ever look at a bull, its strength is amazing. Most of a bull, what you notice is its neck. It's got a gigantic neck. And that's what he's kind of showing you. Okay. Anyway, well, so there you see the series. Starting up there, moving down this way until finally he's satisfied at the end. That's his ultimate bull. Now this is his copy. By the way, he he would go to the museums, and yes, you recognize it?
Yeah, that's like the one where there's the painter mirror in the back. And
Yes!
blue.
Yeah, the Handmaidens. Remember the Velasquez one? He's doing his version. Now he did, in a period of a half a year, he did more than 20 copies of that in his own style. And you can see, there's the princess. And you see the guy that was standing in the door, there's the mirror, there's the artist right there. Yeah, well, you gotta look at it for a while. It starts to take shape when you look at it. It made some on it. Okay, there's Picasso's, right? And, okay, where's the next? There you go. You can see he's using similar figures, but his is extremely different. Now, the question you might wonder, could he have painted it where it would look almost identical to that? And the answer is yes, definitely. But he didn't want to. What's the point? Why do something that someone else did? That's not art. Copying is, you gotta do more than that. Any comments, questions over here? No? Okay. Now, by the way, we're gonna move on to Dali. I think you're gonna really like this guy. The question has come up in other classes about artists copying each other. And I can tell you this, if you're an art student, you copy great artists all the time. It's like if you're learning to play the guitar, you're gonna start copying some other good guitar players. After a while though, you don't just wanna copy anymore, you wanna start your own stuff. You wanna do your own style, and you break away, you begin to do your own work. And that's, so when you see these paintings, did artists actually go and watch each other and go back and, yes. And that's why sometimes, I'm sure you've heard of, you mentioned you'd heard of Leonardo da Vinci. You may have heard of Michelangelo. Raise your hand if you ever heard of Michelangelo. Good. Okay, Michelangelo and Leonardo da Vinci, they didn't like each other, and they were constantly spying on each other, trying to get ideas from each other, and basically rip one another off. But you did it your way. You were expected to. Okay, so just, artists copy art. That's the way it goes. Okay, Salvador Dali. This guy is one of the strangest fellows you'll meet in the art world. And if you ask, well, what did he do? Well, he did everything. He did films, movies. He acted. He did dances. He did paintings. He did statues, sculpture. He designed, this guy was into everything imaginable. And he was about as strange as they get, okay? And his art was called surrealism, which means art that comes from dreams. It's dream imagery. This what's known as the subconscious mind. At this time, a lot of things are happening in psychiatry, and talking about people being controlled by their thoughts that are in dreams and things like that. It's fascinating. And you can see the super long mustache with the little flowers worked into the ends. This is when he was young. This is called Portrait with a Long Neck. And the little town in the back there is his hometown. But self-portrait. Then you go, oh, this is one of his really famous. This painting, a lot of people really like this one. And I think one of the surprises about this painting is when you see it in real, it's only this big. It's a small painting. It's about 1 foot by 10 inches, about like that. So that's kind of a surprise. And this is dream imagery, and it's about time, and about time not being real. Let's move up here. The persistence of memory. See these ants here? The idea is this: time is floppy. It doesn't really exist. Everything ends up dying. It's a weird painting. Then we get into look at this. This is not a very large painting, but when you first look at it, what do you see? You see a building with some villagers sitting there, right? Except turn your head sideways, and then you'll see a face, a head.
Oh, wow.
Can you see it? Can you see the head? Eyes, nose, hair. See that? See it?
What?
Turn your head sideways. Where you're looking like that, and you'll see there's nose.
Blur your eyes and turn this
Yeah, blur your eyes a little, turn to the side, okay? Wait. Look at this eye. There's an eye. There's the eye. There's a nose right here. There's the jaw. There's the hair.
If you blur your eyes, you can see the curve.
All right. So to know how this guy's mind worked, I mean, he's one of the stranger people around. So here's, if you turn it sideways, now you can see it a little easier, right? You can see that this weird head shape. Now, the way he got this idea is, I'm gonna go back one. He saw this photograph, and his mind works different than most people's. So he sees it, he turns his head, and he says, hey, this reminds me of a face. In the same way that if you look up at the clouds sometime, you lay on your back, you look up, and you'll see maybe a horse. And so, well, that's your mind that's creating it, right? And so that's what he's doing here. And there you can see a little bit. See? Now, I want to show you, this is done by El Greco. It's the crucifixion of Jesus. That one is Velázquez. And last, you have Salvador Dali. It's the guy we're looking at now. And see how his is the weirdest, right? It's like a dream image. He's being lifted up into the sky. You'll notice these have the pyramid going on. Even his does, though, too. So the strange checkerboard floor, the image being lifted up into the air like in a dream. Again, this kind of painting is called surrealism. I wish we had a lot of time. He did one with this woman with her back to you, where she's got tattoos all over her back that change into different shapes as you look at it. It's an amazing painting. Okay, Christ on the cross, El Greco. This is his Last Supper. That's Jesus in the middle, right? Anyone want to guess who this strange figure is above doing this? Yeah. God the Father, exactly. And you can see how things just they sort of dissolve into one another. It's like there's nothing that's really solid.
It's also said in religious movies, you cannot see God's or Jesus' face.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good point. So there he is. By the way, many artists did this subject, the Last Supper, where Jesus sits down for the last time with his followers and tells them, one of you is going to turn me in and I'm going to be killed. And that's what he's showing us. Sacrament of the Last Supper, 1955. Here's another one. This painting, oh man, look at the weird perspective, how you're looking at it from below. very strange. He used his wife. This is supposed to be Mary, you know, up in heaven, the mother of Jesus. In this case, as the model, he used his own wife. And this is supposed to be Jesus after he's been killed, coming back from the dead, being raised up into heaven. This big shape here that looks sort of like a sunflower behind him is supposed to be an atom, you know, the smallest particle of matter. Okay, so now we're going to look, this will be the last one, we're going to look at a very famous Mexican artist, Frida Kahlo. Have you, anyone heard of her?
Yeah.
Oh, good.
We
Yes.
study her.
Okay, great.
Frida
Frida Kahlo. She's become very famous in the last 20 years or so. She's really gained popularity. One of the reasons is the singer Madonna, when she was at her most famous, was making tons of money, and she liked Frida Kahlo's paintings. She started buying them. And then other people were saying, "Oh wow, you know, Madonna likes it." You know, so all of a sudden, her value of her paintings just shot sky high. You'll see, this is obviously a map of Mexico. This is the area we're going to be talking about. So then, Frida Kahlo, 1907 to 54. So she died at the age of 47, and she led a really rough life. Really quickly, for example, when she was very young, a little bit older than you, but not much, she was involved in a terrible car accident where she was just torn all to pieces. A piece of wood went up inside of her and tore up her insides, broke her hips, her back, her legs. She was in the hospital for forever, and for the rest of her life, she was in pain. Every day, every minute, she was in pain. So when you see this is she did this painting of herself with her husband. And the interesting thing here, this guy was a very famous artist at the time, her husband, and Diego Rivera. Notice she shows him as the artist, right? Can you all see that? Yeah, so you can tell right now, it's her self-opinion. I think this says a lot about it at this time. There's a photograph of the two of them. They had a lot of marriage problems, and I won't go into them, but it was not a happy marriage. This is one of her self-portraits. As you look at this, first thing that hits you is, what? It's strange. It's weird, right? It's a self-portrait with her face on the body of a deer that's been shot full of arrows. Would you say it's a happy picture? No. Would you say it might be a picture of physical pain? Yeah, right? You get it? Okay. Remember when we talked about symbolism earlier, where things mean more than they appear? This is a good example of that. By the way, they used to show a saint, a very famous Catholic saint called Sebastian. And Sebastian died by being shot full of arrows. And but he was a miracle. He was rescued at the end. And they would always show him tied to a post with about 30 arrows stuck in him, and with a smile on his face. You've seen that one? Yeah. Very many artists do that guy. This is like her version of Saint Sebastian, only it's her. And instead of being a saint tied onto a tree and shot full of arrows, it's her as a deer being killed, shot full of arrows. And again, physical pain. There she is. By the way, she spent in the city of Detroit, I think she was in the hospital for more than a year. She could never have a child because her insides had gotten completely torn out. She, you know, painkillers, rough life. And, oh wait, I just wanted you to see self-portrait at the borderline between Mexico and the United States, 1932. This left side represents Mexico, the right side is the United States. You can tell where her heart lies, right? There's no doubt that she was always very clear on this one. Even though she spent quite a bit of time in the United States, for her, she was Mexican living in the United States instead of in America. You can see she's got the flag. And the way she shows the United States is as an industrial country with factories and pollution. See all the smoke coming out of the stacks and the flag up there and the big skyscraper high-rise buildings. That's her opinion of the United States. And it's, well, not far off. And then for the Mexican side, she's got these Aztec Mayan things. She's got the temple of Tenochtitlan. She's got plants growing. And, you know, back, especially then, Mexico was a place where not a lot of industry, a lot of farms. Yes, huh?
Oh, what are like the rocks? Or are they just supposed to be piled up?
Yeah, that's what this is showing us the past greatness of Mexico in what was called the pre-Columbian time. You know, with the especially the Aztecs. Okay, there were so many groups. People always talk about Aztecs, but there were Mixtecs and Zapotecs and just all kinds of different groups. With the Aztecs being the most famous. Then right below them you have the Mayans. Okay. Now, wow, this is interesting. It says more than you first see. One of the things I want you to notice is this is her dress, and it's hanging. This is supposed to be New York City. Her dress, she was there with her husband. He was working on a big project. She didn't like it. And you can see her dress is hanging there empty, meaning, I'm here, but I'm not here. Then you see a lot of references to money, fire, toilet. Yeah, a toilet is holding up her dress, and a trophy. It's a strange painting, but it tells you a lot about where her mind was at the time. Okay, well, that's it. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you got something out of it. Thank you. Thank you.